everybody. Today we're going to show some examples of how to write conditional statements, including the conditional, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. Here's number one. If you live in San Diego, then you live in California. Okay, that's just a conditional statement, and we're going to assign a truth value to that. That is a true statement, so we'll call it true. Okay, converse switches around the hypothesis and conclusion. If you live in California, then you live in San Diego. And that is a false statement. Just because you live in California doesn't guarantee you live in San Diego. Okay, the inverse switches around. It just puts a not or a don't or a won't in front of each statement of the conditional. So for the inverse of this, if you don't live in San Diego, then you don't live in California. And that turns out to be false. Contrapositive switches everything around. It switches the order of the hypothesis and conclusion, and it puts the negation of each statement in front. If you don't live in California, then you don't live in San Diego. And that is true. If you're not in California, there's no way you're going to be in San Diego. Now I want you to notice the pattern here. The conditional and the contrapositive had the same truth value. The converse and the inverse had the same truth value as well. Okay, let's look at number two. If a polygon is a rectangle, then it is a square. That is actually a false statement. Let's label that false. Okay, and then the converse, if a polygon is a square, then it is a rectangle. That's true. The inverse, if a polygon is not a rectangle, then it's not a square. That's true. Contrapositive, if a polygon is not a square, then it is not a rectangle. That is false. Okay, down here our last example. If two angles are complementary, then the sum of their measures is 90. That defines complementary. That is true. Okay, let's look at the converse. If the sum of the measures of two angles is 90, then they are complementary. That's true. For the inverse, if two angles are not complementary, then the sum of their measures is not 90. That is true. And finally, the contrapositive of number three. If the sum of the measures of two angles is not 90, then they are not complementary. And that statement is true. On number three, all four truth values for all four statements were true.